Hello, welcome to Truck Stop Murder and True Crime Podcast. I am your host, Gary Howard, and it's been a while since I've been on here recording anything. I've been quite busy, actually. Decided to get back into music, so I picked up my bass guitar. Well, actually, a friend of mine, Chad Riddell, actually hooked me up with a friend of mine that I knew like 20 years ago. I met him 20 years ago, Ronnie Lester, and he said he wanted me to play bass for him. So I said, okay. So I hooked up with him. So I've been trying to figure out my songs and try to get back into it because I had put a bass down for a while. And before I get started, I'm going to give a big shout out to Cheryl Townley. She's a friend of, which is a funny story because she was been messaging me on Facebook Messenger. But I guess she likes my show. And I told her that I had joined a band. First, she was telling me where she was from. I was like, I just joined a band out of that city. And she goes, yeah. I said, yeah, his name is Ronnie Lester. And he goes, she asked me, does she know my husband, Tommy? And I was like, well, let's find out. Come to find out, they do. Ain't this a small world? I asked her, how did she find I figured maybe they might have told her about it, but nope. She just Googled my name, on Castbox, True Crime. And she just happens to know her husband knows the person that I'm going to join the band with. So hopefully we'll get that going this summer. You come see us play. We got to get our set together. But yeah, Cheryl Townley, shout out to you. Thank you for listening. Hopefully in the future we have more like you, but you will be my first. Well, have other fans, but you're the first. Well, I better shut up before I make other people mad. There's a few. But anyhow, today I'm not going to talk about a murder happened over where I'm at. This murder happened in actually a mass shooting that happened in Aurora, Colorado. Where I'm at right now is in Lincoln, Lincoln, Illinois, at Thorntons. It's right off of I-55 on Lawndale Road. I don't have an exit for me. I should have had that ready. Sometimes the information I get from Trucker's Path usually sometimes has the exits on here, but this time it don't. But Thorntons truck stop is also a pilot on Woodlawn Road, and right now there's plenty of spots. It's right now it's set. Well, it depends on what time you go by, military or regular. Right now it's 5:21 or 17:21 on the 27th, and that's where I'm at right now. Chilling. There's plenty spots. And fuel right now is gotten up the last couple of days. 8 days was 328 according to Truckers Best. There's 100 spots here, showers, Wi-Fi, all that good stuff. So, and a lot of people like this place. There's a 3.9 rating on it, which just seems kind of low. That's on a 5. So a lot of truck stops only have like 2.5, but this one pretty. But there still has its negative ratings, which I will get to. But it's not too bad. And if you're traveling through here as a truck driver or a car driving a car, and you decide to stop here for something, and you're hungry, you want to get some food, you have the Thorntons. They have a little food area there with pizza, sandwiches, everything. You can make your own. Yeah, and it has beer, by the way. If you want to buy beer or hard liquor, it has it here. And nice that you can have. I never order food, but the food they have here looks pretty good. Burritos, sandwiches, burgers, pizzas, homemade. And inside the store itself, it has a steak and shake. And there's a Russell Stover chocolate somewhere around here. I didn't see that, but I do see the Arby's across the street. Beck's is, I'm not for sure what that is, but it's right across the street, the gas station where the Arby's at. It's like a Beck's gas station. They have food there. There's a Dunkin' Donuts down the road, a Cracker Barrel for all you wife crackers, saltines. Wendy's is where I'm next to, and these are all within a quarter mile of this place. Now I've seen all of them. Where I can see right now. Then you have a Rio Grande Mexican restaurant and El Mazatlan, another Mexican, which is a quarter mile from here. So you have your options if you're driving by here and hungry. And let's see what people think about this place. And like I said, a lot of people like it overall. For this is 3.9, food 4.4, parking 4.4, showers 4.5, service 4.2 is probably the lowest. And I could go on and on with the 5-star reviews. But that's what people, and they all pretty much say they like the place. A lot of parking, nice place. Spacious parking. A lot of people get here late. Here's the one 3-star parking lot is under construction. Navigating is a little tad weird. Nothing out of the ordinary. Here's the first one. 1 star. Women's bathroom has been this way for there. She has some pictures, which is not that bad. Been this way for a week. Had to stop for a 10. Got stuck for a 34. Here, sadly, employees are rude. Want to complain about masks, but wear them improper. Don't wear them properly. The bathrooms are nasty. No sanitation anywhere. Okay, 3-star review. Parking lot lights are not working. Typical pilot showers. And the parking lot needs fixed. I don't think it's that bad of a parking lot, unless they fix it since that. Let me see, when was that review? That review was 5 months ago. No, I've been driving a truck since then, and it's not that bad. I mean, it's kind of tight parking. Get here late, and you don't know what you're doing. You can have an issue. So when I showed up here last night, I saw a truck driver trying to pull into an area and just finally gave up. 100 spots and no light. A lot of people lighting. You have to watch your deli like a hawk. This guy, he was bitching about his order. I ordered burrito with pepper jack cheese and no onions. They gave me cheese and boatload. They gave me no cheese and a boatload of onions. Very disappointing. And this guy, he did this 3, not now. Some guy yawning and 2 cups of coffee. 3 stars. That's it. And a lot of people giving this 1 stars because they're complaining about how they're not allowed to bring your thermos in or cups in because of the coronavirus. But there's one that I'm trying to find. Just a truck, 1 2-star. Just a truck stop, clean bathrooms, cleanish lot. Steak and Shake is horrible. He didn't like the restaurant. Another 1 star who didn't like the restaurant. And I'm looking through right here, where this one person gave it a 1-star review, I believe. And the thing about it was even about the truck stop, the restaurant, or anything. He said 1-stop review, truck stop's good, but I hate reefer trucks, which I don't understand. Here's horrible 1-star. Jesus Saves, from Jesus Saves. Horrible, huge potholes. I must have missed that. These are within 1 year. Here you go. His from nickname. Nice stop, but with all uppercase letters, I hate you reefers. And 1 star. Why is he giving this place a 1-star review? Because his ass is complaining about reefer trucks. There are no way, shape, or form affiliated with this place. But anyhow, there you go. That's a review of the Thorntons in Lincoln, Illinois. Now, as for the murder I'm about to get to, is actually a mass shooting that happened in Aurora, Colorado. And if you're in true crime or just haven't been watching news, you probably heard of this. And I thought I'd cover it. I'm behind on my research on a lot of things. I have a lot of episodes lined up, which I want more to it. And so I decided this will be the one I come back to because I found a good page where pretty much told the story pretty good. So without further ado, I will get into it. Aurora, Colorado is I would say a small city, but it's a suburb city of Denver, Colorado. It's like right east of it. If you leave Denver on I-70 going east, you would run right into it. And I've had some customers there. We have a regular customer there that we go there all the time, but I usually park in Denver. But yeah, it's right outside. Has like about 360,000 people, so by far it's not little. And one of the most popular locations in this city is a local Century 16 movie theater, a huge complex featuring dozens of movie screens varying from small showing to IMAX movies. There's a lot of them. Some of them have 16, 24, or 36. They're huge now. It's like the big thing now where they can show as many movies as they can. I don't think they fit as many as the old school theaters where you just had one where the whole place was dedicated to one thing, but you could show different movies. It was a place of fun and relaxation that one of the most worst shootings in U.S. history would occur. It was a pleasant summer evening on July 20th in 2012, and movie fans across the country were anxiously waiting the premiere of The Dark Knight Rises, the third film of the Christopher Nolan Batman series. This movie was highly anticipated due to the smashing success of the previous film in the series, The Dark Knight. Due to the hype, the Century 16 was full to capacity that night, and every showing of the movie being sold out. Many fans arrived hours before the midnight premiere and was dressed in various Batman-themed costumes. Several people would later recall how festive the atmosphere was and how perfect it all seemed. The buttery smell of popcorn and the chatter of happy moviegoers filled the air as the clock ticked towards midnight. It was a midnight show, by the way. The largest theater in the Century 16 was Theater 9, was shown the premiere and was filled to capacity. Nearly 400 people packed in the seats. Among the ranks were people from all walks of life: families, couples, fans, critics, college students, teenagers, and many more. There was also a killer lurking among them, sporting a tan jacket and orange poking out from under a black. His hair was he dyed his hair orange, I guess, looking like the Joker. Black beanie. The man did not attract much attention as he redeemed his ticket and took a seat in the front row of Theater 9. I bet you a lot of people was probably like that, so they probably didn't really think nothing of it. As the clock struck 12, the lights dimmed and the clamoring crowd got quiet. The movie began as usual after the trailers ended, and much of the audience soon became engrossed in this, involved in the story. Approximately 28 minutes into the movie, just past 12:30 a.m., the man in the front row quietly got up and went out the emergency door. Most of the audience thought nothing of it. It appeared that the man was taking a phone call. As he was leaving, the man put a tablecloth holder in the doorway so he could come back after he was done making his phone call. That's what everybody thought he was going to do, but come to find out they were totally wrong. Before returning to the theater, he went to his car, a white Kia, that was parked outside the exit door. He opened the trunk, began to put on some gear to begin to gear up. He first removed his tan jacket, put on a Black Hawk tactical vest. He then put a black heavy jacket over his vest. Next, he put on a gas mask and ballistic helmet, along with gloves, neck protector, groin protector, and leg protectors, all armored up. Then came the guns. Let's see what kind of arsenal that he had with him. He removed a Smith & Wesson M&P Smart Sports AR-15 rifle with a 100-round drum magazine and red dot sight, and slung it over his shoulder, getting ready to go in. Which is just crazy thing. It looks like a double Tommy gun thing. I don't think I've ever seen one of these things. When the military only give you a 30, be kind of something 100 rounds. I think it's too much. He then, actually I had one with my 249 that was similar to that, but not quite like that. He then clipped a Glock 22 40 caliber handgun to his waist before grabbing a Remington 870 Express Tactical 12-gauge shotgun. The last thing he grabbed was 2 canisters of clear-out tear gas. Before doing research, I didn't even know there was tear gas involved in this. I thought he just went out and grabbed guns and started shooting. I knew he got the gear on, but I never knew that with the gas and he was getting ready for war, gas mask and everything. But yeah, he was not messing around. The last thing he grabbed was 2 canisters, like I said, tear gas. He put some earbuds on and began playing some techno music before walking back towards the building. And back in Theater 9, this was a scene it was like going on. So a few people in the audience, they're all caught up in the scene that was going on in the movie. A few people noticed the exit door reopened, but many of them was so involved in the movie they didn't think nothing. And the people who did see it, it was dark inside and could only vaguely make out the shape of the tall, lanky figure who just re-entered. Some people thought he was wearing a costume for the movie and was part of some promotional stunt for the film. I guess he thought it was like they thought it was like the Rocky Horror Picture. I've never been to, but it was like a 70 movies, like play where people got involved in it. There's audience involved in it. They showed a movie. I never been to one, but it'd be kind of cool to check it out. Rocky Horror, where it was like an interactive movie, and there's cast members that pop up, scream, do things, come up on stage. It would be interesting. So they thought that was what it was. The match stood wordlessly for a few seconds before tossing two canisters in the crowd. The, the ugh. The next one went long, the landing on the opposite side near the left middle row. The tear gas began to emit came out through the canisters, irritating audience's eyes and throats and making their skin itch, which I could believe it. Being in the army, we had to go through a couple gas chamber, and it is, if this is the same thing, CS gas, yeah, it really disorients you. Can't breathe, you can't do nothing. It was horrible. Before people could react to the gas, the men opened fire. The first fired a shotgun blast into the ceiling before turning on the audience. Guess he wanted to get their attention first. The first few blasts were aimed to those towards the back of the theater. Many people were hit by buckshot as they ducked for cover. 2 people was initially killed in the opening volley. 18-year-old Alexander Boyak was shot in the head and killed instantly, with several pellets entering his chest and right shoulder. Jesse Childers, age 29, was also killed by a shotgun wound to the torso, along with pellets to the legs and right arms while shielding a friend. Rebecca Wingo, age 31, was also fatally wounded by buckshot pellets to the head. As people realized this wasn't a prank or promotional stunt, that began to try to escape. And some people played dead while others tried to flee down the aisles while carrying wounded friends and family. As the fire alarm began to blare, the gunman dropped his shotgun, switched to the AR-15, the one with 100 rounds, and began firing into the crowd. He was lighting the place up pretty much. He walked across the front of the theater, firing dozens of shots in a few minutes at people in the aisles and their seats. Which at this time, I remember watching a little thing about it, interviewing one of the women that was actually sitting in the front row, and they made eye contact, but I think he didn't really want to make eye contact. He'd shoot people that he could look at. I guess he didn't want to be up and personal with the victims, but she was the one who survived. Now, I don't know how true this is, but this was from one of the interviews I watched with one of the people, that he stood right in front of her shooting people, and she was so terrified and feared that she couldn't move, but he did not shoot her. But many tried to hide behind the theater seats, but they offered no protection from the gunman's bullets, which easily ripped through them. 9 more people would be killed by the gunman's shots. Some of these people, such as 23-year-old Michaela Medic, was hit by a single shot to the chest or head, while others, such as Matt McQuinn, age 27, was killed by upwards of 9 shots. 3 people in a enjoyment theater over in Theater 8 were also injured by rounds that went through the walls of Theater 9. At this point, multiple calls went out to 911, of course, and authorities began rolling units towards the complex. The panic soon spread throughout the whole complex as streams of bloody people filed out of Theater 9 in the parking lot into the lobby building, which I could only imagine if you didn't know what was going on, because a lot of these theaters are pretty loud. So if you're like in Theater 2 or 5 and the movie just ended and you're coming out of there and all these bloody people are running down the aisleways, that would definitely be a sight to remember from. Wouldn't know if it was real or part of a movie scene, or it would be crazy to be there that day. But yeah, after firing 65 shots, the gunman's drum magazine jammed. He ejected the mag and put in a new 30 round, but the gun will still not fire. Probably dirty. So he drew his Glock 22 and fired 6 shots randomly at the theater seats before calmly strolling out the emergency door where he had entered. As Aurora police and EMS arrived at the scene, they were met by absolute chaos. Dozens of people with various injuries littered the parking lot outside. the theater, as well as hundreds of uninjured people who were milling around in confusion. And keep in mind, at this time, nobody even still don't even know who or where this individual he is at, where who did this. Like in many active shooting scenarios, people received multiple conflicting reports. Some cited the presence of up to three. They said of three shooters, and there was someone shooting in the lobby. One of the first teams of officers to arrive quickly formed a small tactical team and breached the Theater 9 via the emergency exit door. To keep in mind, same place that he came in and out of. And just outside the exit door, they noticed the AR-style rifle in a puddle of blood. I know earlier I said that he dropped it in the theater, but I guess he had carried it out with him. But the AR-style rifle was outside in a puddle of blood. Inside, they found a haunting sight that would lead to many of them suffering from PTSD. The dark room, once packed with joyous and chattering moviegoers, was now dead silent after the shriek of the fire alarm and the distant sound of sirens and helicopters. A thick acid-type smell of gunpowder and sulfur hung in the air. So if you ever been by a firing range, you know what I'm talking about. The lingering mist of tear gas stung the officers' eyes and nose and prompted some of them to return to their vehicles to get gas masks themselves. As the team cleared the room, they did not find the shooter, but found a shotgun and several spent shell casings, which reminds me of a story when I was in basic training, because I was in the Army, by the way. I spent 9 years, 6 years at 82nd, and 3 years with the 1st Cab. But when I was in basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, we were at this one area that was not supposed to be for gas, and they decided to bust a can of CS gas, probably the same type that he had, right there to kind of, but the gas was windy, and they were doing some construction down the ways, and all that gas lingered over there, so they had to shut down because that started affecting them. And once it gets into some types of areas, they'll just sit there, and they just had to call off work. And I don't know how much trouble they got into, but they were not happy that they got gassed out of their work site. But back to the story, they also located several critical injured people. I guess they couldn't move. One suffered officer recalled that he evacuated a woman whose intestines was hanging out of the body after a gunshot wound to the stomach. Others were missing fingers, toes, and gaping wounds in their and within them that bled heavy. They were bleeding heavily. In addition to the wounded, there was also many dead. Sergeant Mike Hawkins tearfully recalled how he came, if you watch in interviews, how he came upon the scene of the Moser Sullivan family. Ashley Mosler, the mother, was lying on top of her 6-year-old daughter, Veronica Moser Sullivan. Mrs. Mosley, who was pregnant, was unable to move as she had suffered a gunshot wound to the chest. Hawkins rolled Mrs. Moser over to help Veronica. The little girl, who loved ice cream swimming, was critically injured by 4 gunshot wounds, including one to the chest, arms, and lower right side. Hawkins rushed her out to the theater, but unfortunately, sadly, she died, and she passed away of her injuries before she could be transported to the hospital. Ashley Morser, who has survived the shooting, but bullets hit her spine, rendering her paraplegic. Ashley Moser. It also caused her to miscarry. One of the most haunting things officers in the theater would recall was the ringing sound of unanswered cell phones, their owners either dead or seriously injured. In a parking lot, officers noticed a suspicious. Keep in mind, up to this, they still don't know who this person did, who did this, where this person's at. But in the parking lot, the officers noticed a suspicious-looking figure standing next to a white sedan. Aurora officer John Elvet later recalled that he thought this man was one of the SWAT officers based on the outfit, but upon closer inspection, he was wearing more armor than they normally wore. In his statement, he said he was just standing there, not doing anything, not urgent about anything, just standing there. Ovet and another officers confronted the man and commanded him to surrender. The man then put up a fight and let the officers cuff him. They removed his tactical gear and noticed he was very sweaty and out of it. Didn't know where he was at. And if anybody watched the court hearing about this person, you'll see what I'm talking about. They found the Glock 22 used in the shooting in top of the car, as well as a second Glock 22 inside it. Confronted, they had their man. Officers arrested the gunman and placed him in the back of a patrol car. Although rescue operations were still ongoing, they thought they could breathe a sigh of relief as the threat was neutralized. Until a man uttered, "My apartment is rigged to explode." Soon after, the gunman officer searched his vehicle and pat him down. They found the official documents identify him as 24-year-old James Eugene Holmes. And if anybody's seen a picture of him, he is, even with the red hair just makes him look more crazy. He has big, huge eyes, and because they're kind of like off center, makes him look crazy. Maybe because the hair, I don't know. Before find out who his identity, here we go. Before delivering into his identity, officers had the more pressing issue of diffusing explosives. Trying to get it, let's get back to start this again. Before telling everybody who he was, I don't know, I kind of copied and pasted some of these notes. I don't even know why I would have put that down. Make no sense. Before the officers tell everybody who he was, the more pressing issue was diffusing explosives Holmes set up at his apartment. Aurora SWAT teams, bomb squads, and the ATF rushed to Holmes' apartment at 1690 Parrish Street. They evacuated the building that night before using a remote camera to check inside. Inside, they observed several incendiary devices, including gunpowder, gasoline, homemade napalm, and ammunition. Back at the theater, EMS and police continue to treat victims. Due to the number of victims, many police officers used their cruisers to transport victims to the hospital. Aurora police officer Justin Grizzle took 6 shootings victims to the hospital on separate runs and recalled there were so much blood that he could hear the sloshing around in the back of his patrol car. By the time it was all over with, 12 people would be dead and 70 would be injured, making it the largest shooting in the U.S. in terms of casualties at this time. It took police several days to complete the fusing device in Holmes' apartment. They determined that they had a boombox set to play very loud music on loop. This was supposed to attract someone to his apartment, which would have the door would have been unlocked. If someone opened the door, it would set off the explosives of the device. Holmes also left the RC car outside his apartment near the dumpster. Next to it, he placed a remote control detonator, which the hope of somebody would be you thinking it was a toy, because the RC toy tried to use it and was set off the device. So Holmes also left. The trial of Holmes would be several years to start due to questions about his mental state and his competency to stand trial. So let's talk a little about this Mr. Holmes, what made him such a crazy individual that he would do that. Well, like I said, if anybody watched any kind of news coverage of him, he looked out of it. Like, I don't know if it was true craziness or his lawyers. I don't know. But born on December 13th, 1987, San Diego, California, James Egan Holmes had a perfectly average childhood. His dad was a scientist, his mother was a nurse. By all accounts, the family was a normal middle-class American family and initially resided in Castroville, California. However, James began to change around the age of 12 when the family moved because he moved to Castroville, moved back to San Diego. Although he was normally an outgoing yet intelligent child, around the time he began to withdraw socially. He had trouble making friends and spent much of his time playing video games in his room. Holmes would later tell doctors that as a preteen he would see shadowy figures that would often fight each other with guns and axes. He also claimed to be terrorized by nail ghosts, which would come out of the walls in his bedroom at night and hammer on the walls. I guess that's why he called them nail ghosts, like nail guns. When the family moved back to San Diego, Holmes reportedly attempted suicide by cutting his wrist and with some cardboard. Not a way to do it. After graduating from high school, Holmes enrolled at the University of California at Riverside to study neuroscience. Holmes earned a straight A and finished with a 3.95 GPA. After graduating, he worked as a pill and capsule factory. He worked at a pill capsule factory in San Diego. Some of his co-workers know that he was also unsociable and once acted bizarre by staring at a wall silently and only smirking when his co-workers asked if he was okay. In summer 2011, Holmes enrolled in the PhD program of neuroscience at the University of Colorado Auschwitz Medical Campus in Aurora, which was where the movie theater happened. Admissions officers later noticed that they remembered Holmes' application because he submitted a picture of himself with a llama. Yep, a llama. I will post a picture when I do these pictures. I'll post a picture of this. He's just sitting there looking at the llama. In fall of that year, he met his first girlfriend, a fellow grad student by the name of Gargi Dada, Gargidatta. Their relationship was short and only lasted a few months. During this time, Gargi would testify that Holmes could be sweet at times, but was often awkward and introverted. By February 2012, the two had broken up after she reported that Holmes seemed distracted and unloving. They remained friends, though, and often chatted online for months afterwards. It was in those chats where Holmes would mention that he wanted to do something evil. Although she thought he was joking, he would go on a ramble about the value of human life and justice. She'll go, but if you ever know anything about true crime, a lot of the things that a lot of killers do, serial killers, they will talk beforehand, and nobody ever takes them seriously. And then they go off and do something like that. I wouldn't say go crazy on them and isolate them, but definitely keep an eye on them and make sure that they don't do something like what Mr. Holmes here did. At the point I started thinking, according to her, she goes, at the point I started thinking maybe he is serious about it. Seemed, or pretty plausible, but she still didn't do nothing. She recommended he first, of course, he talked to him about it. She recommended he talk about these issues with his doctor, and a few days later, Holmes told her he no longer could be friends with her. He was around the time in spring of 2012 that Holmes began to unravel. His academic performance declined. He scored terrible on the comprehensive and oral exam. Goodness, everything's falling in my truck, startling me. The school wasn't planning to punish him for back to what I was saying. Holmes' academic performance declined, and he scored terrible on a comprehensive and oral exam. The school wasn't planning to punish him for this, but Holmes abruptly he dropped out for this. I guess he didn't want to do it no more. Holmes would later recall to court-ordered psychiatrists that his broken brain couldn't be fixed itself, no matter how much neuroscience he studied, and that he was incapable of handling the social interactions required to do lab work. He did not want to be around nobody. Additionally, he had mentioned that around the time he started planning a mission to increase his self-worth. This is where it gets interesting. One of the main themes of Holmes' psychotic profile was the belief of a human capital system. This essentially boiled down to the belief that if each person he killed would increase his value by one. By increasing his value enough, he would feel worthy enough that he wouldn't have any reason to kill no more. I guess the less people on the planet, then it makes him more valuable. Holmes stated a journal later presented a trial where he would detail the theory along with his plans on how he would carry out his mission. He considered using biological weapons or bombs, but noticed he was too scared to accidentally blow himself up. He also considered serial killing, but determined that was too few victims, too personal, and leaves too much evidence. Ultimately, he decided to settle on a mass shooting, which don't make no sense to me. That there's nothing about too much evidence about that. Now, if he would have left, I think maybe he would have got away with it instead of hanging around. I think a lot of people, they get busted because they do hang around or they go back to the scene to observe their work. And that's when the police, because the police are looking at that. When they have the taped up, they're looking, they're observing, they're seeing everything to see who comes back. And also funerals, because a lot of times they want to go back to the funeral and they want to see who's there, and how people are reacting. That's how they catch a lot of people. He considered several places, back to the shooting, because like I said, he considered a mass shooting. He considered several places, including the airport, but decided that there was too much security and people would think he's a terrorism. His act was terrorism. He clarified on this last part by writing, terrorism isn't the message. The message is that there is no message. He did this for no reason at all. This, besides wanting to be a priority by eliminating the human race so he could be less people, so he'd be more valuable, I guess. This led to him eventually decide to target the movie theater. He specifically chose a location as he enjoyed going to the movie theater, and Pacific Theater he planned to attack had the doors that could be locked. Although it was initially circulated that Holmes dyed his hair orange and picked The Dark Knight Rises, showing because he wanted to emulate the Joker, this was not the case. Instead, he chose the look because he wanted to look memorable and stand out. It turned out that he chose a specific showing as he knew it would be packed and because he hoped that a midnight screening would have less children. I guess for some reason he cared about children. Of course, there was this Dark Knight Batman. On May 22nd, 2012, Holmes purchased his first gun, a Glock 22 40 caliber handgun. A week later, he bought the Remington shotgun. 10 days later, a few hours after dropping out of grad school, Holmes purchased the M15 rifle. Over the next few weeks, he would also buy thousands of rounds of ammo as well as various items of tactical gear. He also purchased a first aid kit, spike strips in case he was in a shootout with the police or decided to run from them. As part of the preparation for his attack, Holmes also took dozens of pictures of himself with the weapons, as people do, or killers do. In many of these pictures, he would wear black contact lenses in order to look fearsome. He also visited the theater multiple times to scout the locations and take photos. A few hours before the shooting, Holmes mailed his journal to his psychiatrist, Dr. Lynn Fenton. However, the shooting occurred before the package was delivered to her. Holmes later recalled that in the days leading up to the shooting, he felt anxious and thought the FBI might be following him. He later stated that he partially hoped that they would stop him before he carried out the attack, but they never did, as they were unaware of his plans. Nobody was watching him. Right before the shooting, Holmes called a mental health crisis hotline, hoping somebody would talk him out of shooting, but the call got dropped within 9 seconds of the call. Despite Holmes' mental health issues and delusions, the court later determined that Holmes was fit to stand trial. It was noted that although he was mentally ill, he was still aware what he was doing was wrong. The trial finally began on April 27, 2015, nearly 3 years after the shooting. The defense did not dispute that Holmes committed attacks. Instead, were trying to save him from the death penalty by convincing the jury that he was mentally ill. After months of testimony from witnesses, police, forensic scientists, psychiatrists, and other experts, Holmes was found guilty on all charges. 24 counts of first-degree murder, 2 for each victim, and 140 counts of attempted murder, 2 for each victim, and 1 count of possession of explosive. Aggravating factors included a number of casualties, premeditating, lying in wait, indifferences for life, and abject cruelty. Although Holmes faced a death penalty, he was instead sentenced to, the judge said, "Be gone with you, asshole. Life without parole, with the plans of additional," and this is crazy, "be gone again for 3,318 years, as juries could not come up with a unanimous decision regarding the death penalty." So he would be in jail for the rest of his life. Holmes was initially imprisoned in Colorado State Penitentiary but was assaulted by another inmate in 2015. Although he was not injured, Holmes was transferred to USP Allenwood Maximum Security Prison in Pennsylvania, where he currently resides at right now if you want to send him a letter. And I'll tell you again, USP Allenwood Maximum Security Prison in Pennsylvania, where he'll spend the rest of his life. And there you go. That is a story of Mr. Holmes. And I can't remember his name. I just did this whole thing. We'll just call him the Joker. The Joker Holmes and Aurora shooting. And if you like that story or find that interesting, go ahead and tell a friend about me. And I don't even care where you share from. I know in the past I share on iTunes. I don't even care where you share from. Just share it with somebody. I'm trying to build this thing. Once I get this built, iTunes is for some reason I keep on here, and Apple iTunes is where it's at, where if I want to really build this thing. But you know what? I just want to build it. So tell a friend, share it on social media, join my Facebook group in Facebook, and also on Twitter. So, but it's Truck Stop Murder True Crime Podcast. You just go to the website, which I started up, truckstopmurder.com. You can find all the links on that. Or if you want to email me, it's truckstopmurder@gmail.com. And you can tell me anything, call me an asshole, or whatever you want. I'm always up for conversations. And as always, thank you for listening. And you can't fix stupid, but you can sure numb it with a 2x4. I am out of here.
Huh?